Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and this is video number 4 in my video on series on Masonite 4. So in this video, what I'm going to do is focus on how to add things like CSS files, JS files in your templates, and things like that. So if you haven't watched my previous videos where we learned about how to setting up templates, how to set up the project, a little bit about how to use Jinja, how to create routes and all that stuff, do watch those previous videos and do practice the content in those videos so that we can have the comfort level up to this point with the file system. So let's talk a little bit more about the file layout of a Masonite project. First off, I want to point out this kernel.py file. Just so you know, this is essentially what connects everything together. So this is the part where it actually where you would set up middleware. So right here, all your middleware set up, which will be a topic for later on. It sets up which directories do you find things. So if you're ever wondering how does it know which folders to look for things in, it's because it's all kind of connected here in the kernel.py. This just kind of wires everything together. And on that note, far as where would you look for static files is usually what we would refer to as files that are just delivered as is. There's no, it's not like our templates. Our templates get processed because it has to process all that Jinja markup before it actually sends something to the user. Our static files are just like HTML files, CSS files, JavaScript files that we just, or images that we just want to send as is. Okay, so basically the way that works is that if we go to our config, there's a file called filesystem.py, and this kind of lines up right here in our static files, lines up, okay, what is sort of the prefix. So for example, if I wanted to refer to something, this is the folder, so basically this folder, storage, the storage folder right over here, if there's a folder called static in there, I can refer to it in the URL as static. So it'd be like localhost 3000 or 8000/static, okay? And so forth. And I can create as many of these sort of prefixed URLs as I want. You may even want to just eliminate some of these if you want, okay, depending on how you want to do it. So here they already have a precompiled for CSS, whatnot. To me, I'd probably find it just simpler to just delete that and just stick with static, okay? But that's fine, okay? And that's actually what I will do for now to keep life simple. Let me just make sure that none of the templates that are built in refer to any of that. Base, what's in here? Storage, public, just the favicon and the logo. So that case, if I go to the file system, I can get rid of these three. Not a problem. It's not that I won't have those folders, but I'd rather have I don't want to actually create collisions with other namespaces. Though I doubt I'd ever have a /JS/CSS for other purposes. Okay, but that just makes my thought process straightforward. And again, I could just use the already existing public folder and just put stuff in there. Okay, so I could put all my JavaScript, my CSS, my whatnot right in here, and that would just work out fine. That's actually what I will do. So I won't even need this static prefix. Okay, I'm literally just going to create a JavaScript folder in here, a CSS folder in here, in this public folder, and a new folder, we'll call it assets for images, stuff like that. So if I wanted to create my own custom CSS, just because I want to do my custom CSS or I wanted to complement a framework that I'm using, I could just put it in the CSS folder. It doesn't necessarily matter where I pull it, as long as I refer to the right URL. So I'm going to call this new file styles.css. And then JavaScript file, we'll come back to JavaScript. Okay, so now what I could do is if I want that CSS file to be applied throughout my entire project, I could attach it in the base. So I would just head over to my templates. Okay, and I would just sit here and say, okay, I'm going to add a link tag. So I'll just make a line here and I'll just do link. And I want a CSS link tag because again, I'm using Visual Studio Code as my IDE. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to say slash, because again, if we go back to that file system, anything in the public folder is referred to by slash. So essentially I could just do this. I could just do slash CSS slash then what did we call that? We called that styles.css. And that's going to refer to that file, because again, this public folder is slash, so then this CSS folder is /CSS, and then going deeper, styles.css. Okay, and so that's how it would work. Now again, there's this head block in case I need to add anything that's like page specific. So if I want to add like a JavaScript file that's just for a particular page, so I'll call this like new file firstpage.js. So like it's just going to be JavaScript for that first page. What I would do is I would take advantage of this head block. And again, you can create more blocks. This is just what comes out of the gate with Masonite, which is a pretty fine setup. Okay, what I would do is I would go over here to use the head block. So in first page, I would create another block. And again, this first page I made in a previous video. So I'd say block head. Okay. Z. And then we're going to end that block. So that way anything in this block will end up inside the head tag. And then here I can just define like a JavaScript tag. So I can be like link, or no, not link, script source, and say like /JS /firstpage.js. Because again, the public folder is slash, so the JS folder will be /JS and then /firstpage.js. Okay, and then I want to add a defer keyword because I want to make sure that doesn't load up until after the DOM loads, because I'm assuming I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of DOM manipulation here. So again, I could do JavaScript either through like, again, using the JS block and do a script tag where I just write the JavaScript right there, or I could just do it in a separate file and then write. So then here I can say, I'll just do console.log. This is from the first page.js, and then I'll go back to the HTML file and I'm going to say console.log. This is from the first page.html. So you have these options on where do you write your JavaScript. Okay, you generally always have these options with HTML. I can always either attach a separate file or for CSS and JavaScript, or I could always just write my CSS and JavaScript in my HTML using script and style tags. That's always an option. So let's try this out. So I'm going to say Python craft serve. Oh, I'm in the wrong folder. CD project 1 craft Python. Oh, no, Python craft serve. Okay, so that's opened up. Okay, so now if I go over here and I go to first page /G's, because again we had a param from the previous video, and I take a look in the console, see there, this is from the first page.html, this is from the first page.js. Both of those console logs appear, and let me just check, did the CSS file get attached? CSS, I see CSS file there, and styles, there it is. So even though I don't have any CSS styles in there, theoretically it is being picked up. So here in DevTools, you can always double check, like, is the things that I connected by just going to the sources tab and just taking a look, like, do I see the things I connected here? If they're not there, you know, go back and assess how you set it up. Okay, so I can, like, again, connect all these HTML, CSS files as I need them where I need them. Now, then that begs the question, be like, well, you know, what if I need some like client-side JavaScript? You know, you got a couple options. I mean, you could pull out the React or Vue libraries as script tags. Maybe we'll go over that as well. But let's first go one by one. Let's first do Jquery. So if I want to use Jquery, okay, the tried and true solution, code.jquery.com, I would go to there. I would go grab the newest script tag. So we'll say minified. There we go. Copy. And then again, I would head over to base and just add that script tag in the head. So that way everything has access to Jquery. So Jquery will be accessed on any page, and then I can do any page-specific query in a page-specific JavaScript file. Okay, so now Jquery is available. So now if I go back here and I refresh the page, I can see that, Jquery is attached there. Okay, next, so again, if I wanted to write some Jquery code, so if I go back to the first page.js, I can do something like, let's just create it like an H1. So I'll say, and again, I'm not going to go over how to write jQuery. I have plenty of videos on jQuery. Ideally, you've probably studied some HTML, CSS, and JavaScript at this point, that you're familiar with jQuery. If not, again, I'm going to give you a couple different options on what you can use for client-side JavaScript. And what do I mean? Your templating, your Jinja templates can handle sort of the initial appearance of the page. So whatever you want the page to initially have can be dynamically rendered using templating. So Jinja can be like, okay, hey, your route passed some data. I render the data on the page. But what happens after the page loads? Maybe you want to click a button and then something happens or something like that. So for example, if I were to go to this first page here and add a button, so let me add a button. Okay, it's just one button, it says click me. Now I want to make it where that button clicks and it does something. I can't do that in Jinja. Jinja only handles sort of the initial view of the page. So this is where I need some sort of client-side front-end framework. jQuery, Alpine are probably going to be the easiest go-tos for a templating library like this when you're using templating. But you could also use React and Vue. Not so much Angular or Svelte. They're not really kind of built for that because Svelte has got to be compiled and Angular is just kind of this whole thing. But React and Vue do have the ability to like just be sort of added as something as a something you use on a small scale with templating if you wanted to. Vue much easier for that. Alpine's made it even easier than that, but you have options. That's my point. So again, I create this button. I'd go to my first page.js. What I'm going to do is actually I'm going to grab that button. So I'm going to grab the button element and say, whenever you click on that button, this function will run. Okay. And essentially what's going to happen is on the body tag, I am going to append a new H1. And again, I could also just write plain vanilla JavaScript at the end of the day. I don't have to use any of these front-end frameworks. I could just write plain JavaScript to do the job. Okay. But again, generally if you're using Masonite, it's because you primarily probably want to use Python. This is where Alpine's going to be really nice. You can handle a lot of those JavaScripty things with a very light JavaScript touch using Alpine. But I'll show you that next. Okay, so here we have an H1, and I create an H1, and I want that H1 to have the text of hello world. Okay, so theoretically when I click the button, it should add an H1 that says hello world. So now if I refresh this, okay, where's the button? Here's the button, even though it doesn't look like a button. Okay, see if I click it, and see it added an H1 that says hello world. That's client-side JavaScript. I can't do that with Jinja. There's no way for me to say, hey, if you click this thing, then this happens. Okay, that's why I need some sort of client-side library, because Python's out of the picture once the page loads up on the user's browser. Now we're in browser world, and browser world is a JavaScript world. So that's how I could do that with jQuery. There's also Alpine. Alpine's pretty cool too. Okay, Alpine Js. Okay, so essentially what I would do is I would just add this script tag. Okay. Let's see here. Where's my script tag? Where's the base? So I would again add that to my base, so that way every page has access to Alpine. Okay. So again, if I refresh this, I can now see Alpine is also now been added. So there's Alpine. There's Tailwind. Tailwind comes out of the gate, I'm assuming, with Masonite. So that's a cool thing that you have access to. Okay. Although I haven't used Tailwind all that much, so I'm not going to speak too much to that. Cool. Now, let's see here. What we then want to do is, now that Alpine is connected, is we go back to our template. And the thing here is I don't need to like worry about any external. So I'm going to just delete a lot of this external stuff. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of this JavaScript here. I'm going to get, well, we'll keep that script tag for now. I'm gonna get rid of this stuff. I'm gonna empty out this JavaScript file for now, or just comment out the jQuery. Okay, so now in my content block, what I can do is I can just write like things like a div. Okay, so I'll say, hey, there's a div, and then what I do is I can write like x. I think it's like x state. Basically, everything is done through these x properties. So you see, if you write like x, so it's x data. So x data would be sort of like variables in JavaScript. So you're saying, okay, hey, this div has access to these variables. Okay, notice I don't have to write any separate JavaScript files. I'm basically writing it kind of like right in my HTML. So let's just say x data equals, and then I would just say, hey, word equals, or word hello. So you got to write it like a JavaScript object, which looks like a Python dictionary for the non-JavaScripters. Okay, so I'm basically saying, hey, there's a word, there's a key called word, that's hello. Okay, awesome. And so now here, what I can do is I can have like an h1, it's just empty, but then I say like h text, and I want to say, hey, the text of this h1 is whatever the word is. Okay, so now I'm saying the text of this h1 equals whatever this word variable is. So just to show that in action so far, if I refresh this, I should see, oh, n4, oops, oh, so I should have gotten rid of this line right here, n4, because the loop is gone. Okay, yay for errors that are descriptive. Okay, so you see it says hello. I never wrote the hello in the h1, I just did that x text property. So I can grab, long as I'm inside this div, I have access to these variables. Like that's how Alpine works. So now what I can do is I can create a button that says like x on click, which means when I click this button, and then I can write in quotation marks, I can say like word equals goodbye. Okay, and what that'll do is it'll change the value of that variable when I click the button. So I'll say click me. And then let's see here if I refresh the page. So here's the button, I click it, and see it changes to goodbye. So I get that same effect, but see, I can just kind of write it in my HTML, which is pretty cool. Okay, so that's a cool thing you can do. There's also HTMX, which actually pairs very well with Alpine. HTMX, what allows you to do is that instead of me like just changing it through JavaScript like I did here, what HTMX does is you can create events that actually pull in HTML. So you can create different HTML templates and different routes, and then what you do is you just say, hey, instead of loading a whole new page, just swap out this chunk of the page, which is the HTML from this route. So you would sit there and say, okay, call this route, take the HTML that gets returned, remove the HTML that's here, and replace it with that. That's HTMX. So that's another way to kind of get the same effect in a cool way that can be really performant. So you get the benefit of templating in your dynamic routes, because you can then, because theoretically with HTMX, you can then make a request to a route that uses your Jinja templates and get the benefits of using Jinja when you make those swaps. So that's another really cool tool. I'm not going to demonstrate that one here. I do have lots of other videos where I do demonstrate HTMX. So just look up Alex Merced HTMX. But this is Alpine. Alpine's really cool. So you can see it's pretty easy to just do some basic stuff. Because the idea here is that Jinja is going to handle all the initial visual, all the initial dynamics. So what you need is just something to handle like what happens if I need to change something on the page from a button click. Like, hey, I click on a button, this little form appears, modals, things like that. So, so in that case, Alpine may just give you the splash of front end that you need. But you could also use React. Okay, if you wanted to use React, first thing you would need is like the React script tag. Because again, we're not setting up a whole React environment because we're not using create React app, because we want to be able to combine this with what's going on in Jinja. Okay, so I need to go get the React script tag. Let me go find that. It used to be easier to find. Used to be the first thing. For erase and JavaScript inline to React component. React script tags, maybe. Okay. Here we go. And 1 minute. Okay, add to add script tags. Here we go. Okay, so what we would do is we would copy these script tags. Okay. So I'm gonna get rid of this. Get rid of this here for a moment. So I would get rid of that, and let's see here. What I would want is add this to the base. I want to add these to the base. Okay, although I'm pretty sure I need to add Babel. Next, add script source. Well, we'll get there. You need to add Babel anymore? I guess it didn't mention adding Babel anymore. So, oh yep, here we go. Yes, so because we want to use Babel, so the reason is because you can't use JSX without Babel. Babel is what takes the JSX and React and turns it into like normal JavaScript, or else React becomes like torture to write. You'd be writing something like this, and that's not very pleasant. So then under the two React script tags, we would add this. Okay, so then we would just have to do this. So like, let's go back to my first page.html. I want to connect this first page.js, but I want to use Babel with it. So I have to change the script tag. Okay, so let me just look for the example. Okay. Here we go, type text Babel. So what we do is we add this, because this will tell Babel to make sure to transpile that particular script tag. So if I add this here to that there, perfect. And now we're good to go. So now that I have that there, again, because again, this script tag gets injected in the head, but again, I'm only using this JavaScript file for this page, so I just put that in the head. And then what I could do is I could just sit there and I'll just put a div with the ID of app, your traditional React deal. So the only real downside of like doing it this way, you really only intend to have a splash or React if you're doing this per page. Okay, so the idea is that instead of doing your whole application as this one big giant app component, you might just like have one React component that's a modal or whatnot. So then what I would do is I would write my React component. So let's just say function hello world props. So I would just write my React component, return an h1 that says hello world per se. And then what I would do is I would use the React DOM dot render. This actually should be React DOM dot render. Although has that changed? Return. Yeah, here we go. React DOM dot render. Yeah, that's still the same. Okay, so React DOM dot render, and then we just say, hey, I want to render the hello world component, and I want to render it where document.query selector. I want to select the element that has an ID of app. I think that's what we call it, right? ID of app, yep. So there we go. So now I should see this h1 hello world there. Let me just make sure that's what I got. So even though all you see here is a div, I should see the h1 hello world there, because that's going to mount that component there. So let's try it out. Nope, it did not. So let's take a look here. Nope, let's go to the console here. On React DOM is not defined. Okay, so did I not import React DOM into the base HTML? Let's see here. React DOM, yeah, React DOM is there. So did I spell it wrong? Okay. React DOM is not defined. Let me just check, see sources, React developer tools. code.jQuery unpackage. Here we go, React DOM. And let's see here. Am I referring to it by the wrong name? Like I said, like this is probably not the easiest way to go for using Alpine is probably going to be the most easy way to go. And it's a pretty nice tool. But for those who know React and would like to reuse React, here's how we would do it. Just gotta figure out like what did they call it? Function export React DOM. Oh, is it with a capital R? Ah, maybe that's why. Okay, so it should be React DOM. Okay, React DOM.render. So let's try that again. And there it works. There you go. Okay, so then I could use React and just do all my React stuff. It's just I would have to do it all in one file. Okay. I mean, you could theoretically do it in multiple files. You'd have to make sure you attach that Babel stuff in there, but it probably would be easier to do it all in one file. So it would be sort of like a one file React project. So you would just define all your components to different functions and just make sure to render. But again, you're only doing a splash in this case. You're not doing all the work in React because Jinja is going to handle a lot of that initial sort of just page display React. So in this case, you'd just be using React for like a modal or a carousel or something like that, wherever you need stateful logic. Although again, you could also use Jquery for that, or you could use Alpine for that. And let's just give you one more example. Let's do view. Okay. So let's see here. Let's add the view script tag. Script tag, or so say view 3. Let's head over to the view 3 docs. Been a while since I've used view in this kind of way. Oh. Ooh, a video. Let's not. Okay, let's get started. Okay, first we want to find the getting started. I just want the script tag. Okay. Let's see here. So they used to assume that you would use a script tag. Now I guess not anymore, because it's not really the way most people do things when you're using Vue or React anymore. But the script tag does still exist. So let's see here, view 3 script tag. View 3 script setup. Here we go. Okay. No. This is not what I'm looking for. Although I might want to keep that open because it's useful. Script setup, script tag. I just want the view 3 script tag. Let's see here. Unpackage maybe. Let's see here. Replacing with view nx script tag. View unpackage. Here we go. View distribution. View This used to be a lot easier. Okay. View script tag for JS. No script tag inside root element, getting view 3. I guess we'll just do a script tag for package. Let's go here. If you omit the file path, so the file specified in the unpackage field in package.json. Yep, get it. So in that case, I just want view. View. There we go. Okay. I think that's what we want. To make life easier, I'm going to include these links in the video description. Okay. first page.html. So basically I would want to add this to the base, just like everything else. Oops, I gotta add that as a script tag. So script source, and then we're gonna add view right there. Okay, and let's just make sure that it's grabbing it. So let's do first, let's just refresh the page. Let me check over here on unpackaged. Is it getting view? Yep, I see view in here. Unable to fetch script source, so that's not getting what I want. So let's see here, distribution. Okay, I'm pretty sure this is probably the file I want to grab. Although view minified might be better. Okay. Sorry for all the coughing. So let's try that one out. Okay. And let's see here, unpackage. Browse view in JS. Enable the view script source. What I may do is just go back to view 2's documentation for now, because it's been a while since I've done this with. No, I've never done this with view 3. Okay, so let's go get started. Where can I go back to view 2's documentation? Docs. Usually there's a button somewhere so I can go back. Oh, here we go. CDN. Ha! Okay. Should have just kept reading. Okay, so let's do that. And then I will replace this with that script tag. So it's right there in the documentation. I just need to learn to look better. Refresh. Okay, let's take a look for view. There's view. And then there's all the things. Good. So basically, this kind of works in a similar way where with React, we're basically going to be mounting a component somewhere. I just got to find the exact function that does that. Okay. So let's go back to the beginning. Again, been a while. Nope. Here we go. View.create wrap. Two-way binding. Okay, so I think here's what I'd like. Two-way binding. Yeah. Okay, here we go. So what I'm going to do is we're going to kind of copy this example here. So essentially I would have, this would be my HTML. And if this will kind of look like Jinja, but you know, again, front-endy. So again, first page, I will copy this there. So essentially what I'm saying here is I'm giving this an ID of two-way binding, so that way it knows which div to look for. Anytime I want to inject something, some variable, it'll know that look inside this div and then fill it, kind of like Alpine did. It says, hey, we gave this div data, and it's going to look for how to inject it there. Except here we can use syntax like this, like we would in Jinja. Okay. Yes, which hopefully doesn't collide with Jinja, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. That might, we will see. Okay, and then we can use different directives and stuff like that. Okay. So then what I can do is I would do create app here in first page. So again, I'd comment out all the React code now because we're not doing React anymore. And I would hit view.createApp. And what this does, it's going to use that two-way binding component, or create app two-way binding. We have to create two-way binding. So where did that get created? We also provide the model directive. Oh, here we go. It's just basically this object here. So we basically create this object, and then it has this like this data function. And this data function is like the state. So like the x data, basically it's a function that returns an object, and that's the state. Okay, and then basically that you're saying, hey, attach that object to this div, and now that div has access to that data. So now let's try see what happens. I should see hello view. When I refresh the page, I have one possible issue that might occur. Oh no, it works. Works just fine. Okay, so now I can use view right there, and I can do things like, so if I wanted to create that whole button that changes things, I can do something like this. I can just do like view, or I'll do a button, and I want to say v on click, meaning when you click it, I want to do an event called, a function called click. Okay, and I forget if I have to invoke it or not. We'll find out. Click me. But what I would do then, here in my JavaScript, I would add beyond the data property, I'm going to add a property called methods. Okay, and then here's where I can add all those functions that'll occur when clicked. So we like function click, and say, hey, when you click, the message with this dot message equals goodbye view. Okay. Oh, actually no, I don't need the word function. I can just do that. There we go. Click. Okay, so basically I'm saying, hey, there's this function called click, and when you click on it, it's going to take the message property and change it to goodbye view. And essentially, again, basically everything that's going to happen in that div that I just bound this app to will be defined in this object. And again, I would just do that per page as needed. So now if I refresh this, there's the button. And see, it changes it to goodbye view. So again, you could easily use Vue, React, Alpine, and jQuery with Masonite because you have access to the static files. Okay, and you can attach those script tags, and you can add more JavaScript and CSS files. So this was kind of a long-winded video, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this. My name is Alex Merced from alexmercedcore.com. Have a great day and enjoy.